and the AG will continue to work with them. And so they will make decisions on how to spend that money pursuant to those guidelines. And the reason that the money didn't all go into general revenue is because, I believe, yeah, it was Kansas a couple years ago, they had a big tobacco settlement. The state government then, or the federal government said, we're going to take a little bit of that on a Medicaid clawback. And so we were very afraid that if we did the same here in West Virginia, the feds were going to do the exact same thing. So it remains with that foundation to spend according to those guidelines.
Lori Art,
Ma'am.
Where do you see as most important the federal government invading states' rights? What like 3 points do you see where the federal government is going that will declare our state rights?
So I think the biggest thing that we're going to see here in West Virginia, vis-a-vis the feds and overregulation, is really going to be largely related to our industries. Would it be coal? Would it be natural gas? I think that those two industries are going to continue to remain under attack in West Virginia because of what we've seen over the past couple of years, and that their desire and their shift to move everything in one direction that simply just isn't enough capacity to power anything and hasn't been proven. And so I think that's going to be the one area that the AG's office is really going to have to stand up and continue to fight on. And Patrick Morrissey has done a good job. He had the West Virginia versus the EPA case that was really a big win for this state, and because they had largely just usurped legislative authority. But I think that's going to be the top thing. I think the second thing is that if we continue to see a shift nationally of the Democrat Party and the party in charge, hopefully not much longer, in Washington, D.C., on, you mentioned the social issues. So what is going to continue to happen is that if the legislature here in West Virginia says, no, you are going to go that way, but we're going this way. We're going to go this, it's called sane and normal. We're going that way. And so they're going to continue to go that way. Outside groups, and including the federal government, because the federal government filed the suit against the transgender athlete bill. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be very critical. It is just as we continue to move forward with a conservative agenda, if DC is continued to be controlled by those who do not want to see a conservative agenda move forward, that's going to be, again, protecting, because West Virginia should be able to dictate its own future. We shouldn't have it dictated to us or outside groups coming in and trying to tell us what to do if the legislature has taken action and the governor has signed it into law.
any further? Yes, sir. Randolph Nick.
Well, I think many of us see on a national level that one of our big problems in fighting crime is the discretionary latitude given to attorney generals, particularly in many of the large cities. Mm-hmm. And they'll look at what are currently misdemeanors as mischief and felonies as misdemeanors.
You only stole $900. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder how much latitude you feel that you have.
So the way that the state of West Virginia, and this is kind of appropriate because this has been a discussion point recently. So in the state of West Virginia, the Attorney General's office does not have any prosecutorial powers. Those powers are reserved to your county prosecutors. I think we have one sitting back here this evening. And so that is the framers of our Constitution. That's how they set it up. There's one area in which the AG's office can make recommendations for prosecution, and that is the Medicaid fraud unit. And I had a couple of those cases when I was a prosecutor, and they were the best cases because they did all the work, handed you 3 binders of discovery, and said, we've done the work. If you'd like to pursue the case, here it all is. And so there has been discussion. Another individual who's in this race wants to take that power away from county prosecutors and enlarge the bureaucracy of Charleston and give that office prosecutorial powers, which would also require a constitutional amendment. And so I have a strong concern, a deep concern about that, and the weaponization of government. And I think that we have seen that on the federal level recently, and I have a deep fear of that here on the state level. And so our Constitution was smart enough to give that power solely to prosecutors on the county level, and I think that's where it should stay.
So you don't think the Attorney General should have prosecutors' powers?
No, because because in order to do that, again, there would have to be a constitutional amendment. There are several cases that have talked about that over the past couple years, but also you know, the AG's office currently has about 185 employees. 85 of those are lawyers. And so by how much would we then have to grow that office and grow the bureaucracy of Charleston in order to be able to prosecute all over this state? And so from my perspective, one of my core beliefs as a Republican is small government and local control. So why would we take control away from our prosecutors who we've elected? Why would we take control away from our sheriffs who we've elected and said, no, Charleston's coming in to do your job now? I don't see it being worth growing the government like that and strengthening Charleston's bureaucracy in order to achieve something that's working. Now, is every case perfect on the county level? No, but you find that with any sort of issue. And think of it this way too. So when I was a prosecutor, if I wanted to go to the feds, you know, the U.S. Attorney's Office to get help with a case, they could bring in the FBI, the ATF. I mean, there were resources that they could bring in to help solve that case. If I'm the prosecutor of Brooke County, where I'm from, and I call Charleston because the AG is now the chief law enforcement officer of the state, what does he have to offer that I already have? I have the state police. That would be the only thing that he could offer. Well, I've got the state police. I got a barracks right up the road, and all of their tools are at my disposal because they're the state police. So I just don't see why we would take power away and strengthen what I don't think Charleston needs to have any more power, and that's someone that's been there for several years. That's my
So on
perspective.
the other end of that spectrum, I'm thinking about defending the citizens of West Virginia from the feds coming in and hauling them away because they were like at J6 or because they are against the federal government in some way, or, you know, the federal government is looking at regular citizens as terrorists now. So what do you think of the Attorney General defending individuals? You know, it takes lots of money to defend yourself in federal court against charges that are bogus, or going into gun shops and taking records like they did in one state. What do you think of that?
So on an individual level, the AG's office doesn't, you know, come in and defend somebody in it, because that would be a criminal matter, like if there was a habeas petition or something like that. There would have to be a nexus because you are the state's attorney, not, you know, you don't appear on behalf of just, you know, an individual in a criminal case. So you were the state's attorney. So if West Virginia's rights were being, you know, somehow invaded by the federal government, and there could be you'd have to find a nexus. And look, I'm a lawyer. I get that. I'm looking at 4 million different perspectives in my head right now of like what the situation would be. And so there could be some sort of situation where the AG's office would end up taking on cases. There would probably have to be more than just one, I would think. But in my mind right now, as I try to come up with all kinds of different scenarios, I'm not coming up with one. But that's not to say there isn't, because again, when we come up with what if scenarios all the time as lawyers. So one thing that the AG's office does, so on the individual level, is, again, I talked about the first two things, going on the offensive, playing defense as well. Where the AG's office does get involved on a more personal level is the AG's office, again, I said the Medicaid fraud unit. And so if you have a loved one that is in a facility that is being paid for through Medicare, and they are Medicaid, and they are being abused, the AG's office investigates this, as I said, and hands it over to the county prosecutor. The AG's office also does consumer protection. They have a consumer protection division. I recently had a woman in my district call me. She got a new roof last summer. It's leaking already. She's been trying to get a hold of the contractor for like a month. He's just blowing her off. The AG's office handles that, consumer protection. That's all a part and parcel of that office. If your identity is stolen, the AG's office plays a large part in educating people prior to their identity being stolen, trying to prevent that, but then also helping them if that does happen. I had an op-ed in the papers a couple of weeks ago talking about artificial intelligence, AI, and one of the things that we have seen over the past couple of months is the explosion of AI being used to take people's identities through deep fakes. I wrote about a woman in Arizona who got a phone call. On the other end of it was her daughter screaming and crying, saying she had been kidnapped. And it was her daughter. She knew it was her daughter. Then a guy got on the phone and said, if you ever want to see her again, I think it was $2 million. You're gonna put the money there, or you're never gonna see her, and I'm gonna take her to Mexico. So the woman frantically then started working with other people. The daughter was away on a ski trip, so she thought it was plausible. They got a hold of the daughter. She was fine, she was with her friends. But the daughter's voice had been replicated and cloned by AI. And criminal organizations are using it. You only need 3 seconds to clone someone's voice using artificial intelligence. And so the AG's office, being more responsive, because AGs across the country are being proactive on AI, and so I wrote an op-ed about steps the AG's office could take to help people prevent identity theft. Again, 3 seconds to clone someone's voice, and then it's off to the races. So,
It's terrifying.
yes it is, because I've talked for a lot more than 3 seconds here tonight.
I appreciate one more question. Mark Jarvis.
Do you believe the 2020 election was stolen and Joe Biden got 81 million votes?
I don't know the exact number that Sleepy Joe got, but I can't, so in West Virginia, we were very, very fortunate. We did not see any of that. Other states, I'm not an expert, but there are things that have caused me to be concerned. Look, I live 4 miles from the Pennsylvania border. The other side of the state in Philadelphia, there were a lot of irregularities, I guess maybe might be a word, to show. States like Arizona, there were, Maricopa County is the largest county there in the state of Georgia. So there were things that I think that we should all be concerned about and safeguard our elections here. I think we're very fortunate that, we probably all know who our county clerk is and how the elections in our county are being run. We're very fortunate to have a Secretary of State who's done a lot here in West Virginia to safeguard our election rolls, to ensure that people who do vote here are the ones voting. We passed a voter ID law since I've been in the legislature, and which for some reason was very problematic for some people, that you just had to show your ID to vote. So I think we've done things here, but did I answer your question, sir?
Not really.
I'm sorry. What's that? My bad. My lecture's kind of bad.
I said, do you think the election was stolen?
So again, I think there were certain states that caused me concern to think about that it might have been, yes. And I don't know all the ins and outs of what happened in Arizona, and so I can't definitively say what happened there, but. Yeah. Any other questions?
I think we're good.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
It wasn't all that long ago, we had Warren McGraw as our Attorney General in the state of West Virginia. And, one thing about it, we have been blessed in our state that Patrick Morrissey won that race, and he did clean up the AG's office. And that's why this is such an important race to carry on the fact that the AG's office is in a much better shape than it once was. That has to be kept going forward now. We appreciate the senator coming all the way from the Northern Panhandle. We appreciate that very much, coming speaking with us tonight. Miles. That's right. We're glad that you are not a Pitt Panther. Okay. Going forward, before we go into the short little other agenda items, I want to bring in an update from our friends with the Greenbrier Pregnancy Center. They spoke at our last meeting as well, and we have Amy Hubbard here with us tonight.
I think Pastor Dean will be speaking about the pregnancy center, and then
And then you're going to follow with
Yes.
Helping Hands, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Pastor Dean, what you got for us? I got a microphone here for you.
Last time I was here, the executive, I don't remember which one of you folks said it. It was either you, Ben, or maybe it was Trey, I'm not sure. But they said one of the things that we need to do as Republicans is we need to make a difference, right?
Yes. Right.
There are lots of things that we could get involved in, lots of social problems that we see. But one of them is this whole issue having to do with abortion. And we started out with West Virginians for Life. Paul McLaughlin is here. She's the president of West Virginians for Life. We started there, but then we got to thinking, what happens to that individual, that woman that comes in and is perplexed about abortion, what it is, and how that's going to affect her. And so we understood there's got to be another step. There's got to be an agency of some sort. There's got to be some kind of a reach out so that we can help these women who are dealing with that particular issue. And from that desire, we sprung this Greenbrier Pregnancy Center. This whole idea began sometime in February, and since that time, so much has been accomplished. There have been a number of really excellent individuals who have become part of this. Michelle Hughes is back there. She's our president now of the Pregnancy Center. Since the last time I was here, two major things have been accomplished. One, we did get our EIN number from the state of West Virginia. So now we are an authorized agency, and we also accomplished getting our 501(c) nonprofit designation. So now we are in the process of putting this all together, and now we can open up a bank account. Now we can begin running fundraisers, which we are doing. In fact, there's one coming up in September the 9th. In fact, while I'm talking about that, I can ask you to keep in mind things that you can contribute to that. It's going to be like a flea market. And so if you have some things that you can give to the Pregnancy Center to help us with the funding of this, we certainly would appreciate it. We're not talking about old shoes or socks, that kind of thing. We're talking about some things that have got a pizzazz, something that's going to attract attention, something that people would really like to have. That's the kind of thing we're looking for on this September the 9th fundraiser. So we'd invite you to become a part of that. The last time I was in here, one of the executive committee's members said, we need to discover ways in which we can actually have an impact on this community. This pregnancy center gives you that opportunity. This is one of the things we can do. There's a zillion things out there you can become involved in and understand that, and some of you have those kinds of desires, and that's fine. This is one of those things that you can become involved in and that we can go forward with. We did a study, an exhaustive study, getting statistics from all kinds of agencies, both in West Virginia and national agencies, and discovered that in the 4 counties that we are going to be servicing, that would be Monroe, Greenbrier, Pocahontas, Summers, and part of Raleigh. All of those, putting all those counties together, we found that there is a need for this. There are young women who are pregnant and they don't know where to go. They don't know who to turn to. And this pregnancy center will not only give them counsel, but will also provide them with the needed materials that they have to have. So, and not only that, but they will be given opportunities for resources. They do not have their GED. We're going to help them with that. All kinds of educational opportunities for these young women and the men who are involved who would like to become part of that. This is all part of what this pregnancy center is going to be all about. And so we wanted to make sure that at least the Republican Party knows what's going on with this pregnancy center. And so we're happy, we're excited, we're enthusiastic about getting this thing underway. We ask, well, when will this thing actually come to pass? We don't know yet. There's still some things that are up in the air. But we're hoping that by the end of, or by the latter part of this fall, early part of winter, we'll be in a position where we can actually open our doors and begin to service these women and men who need this kind of resource, this kind of help. Now, I don't want to take any more of your time with the Pregnancy Center. I've got these brochures here, and I'm going to leave them up here with the executive committee. There's more than they can use. So if you'd like to get a brochure and get an idea of what we are doing and some of the ideas that are involved and some of the services that will be involved, they're all free. They're all free services to the people that come in. you can get a hold of one of these brochures and they'll bring you up to date. Now, I do need one caveat here. These brochures were intended for pastors. We're going to need church participation with this pregnancy center. We're not going to be able to do this alone. And so these brochures were originally designed so that we could go into the various churches and talk to the pastors and tell them what this pregnancy center is about. So when you pick up one of these brochures, you understand that that is our target audience, but it does give you all kinds of information that you would need so that you would know what we are about to embark on. And so I'd like to introduce you to Amy Hubbard. Amy is one of the most remarkable women. I told her, and I told her she's one of my favorite girls. She has done so much work in getting together West Virginia Helping Hands. And I wanted her to have ample amount of time so that she could explain to you what West Virginia Helping Hands is. We're not part of that group. They have their own bylaws. They have their own constitution, as we do. But there is a connection that potentially could be made with West Virginia Helping Hands. And I want Amy to be able to explain to you what that is. So, Amy.
Thank you.
One thing I'll say, just as she's coming up, look on the brochure, on the logo, most creative logo I've ever seen. For Greenbrier, the G is a mom holding a baby. And it is. Jackie Dudley did that?
Really?
That's wonderful. Jackie Dudley, you may know, was Todd Longenecker's treasurer in his campaigns. So that's really cool. Amy,
Thank
you got
you.
5 minutes just to power pack it home. That'd be great.
Oh, that's more than what I need.
Good
Thank
deal.
you so much for having me. My name is Amy Hubbard. I was Amy Glaser growing up, graduated from Union High School in 1989, have my bachelor's degree in elementary education, my master's degree in strategic leadership, and then I got my EDS in higher education and adult learning. For 21 years, I was the director of education at Boys Home in Covington, Virginia. And after 21 years, you get to a spot where you're either going to keep doing the same thing or you're going to roll the dice and try something else. After 21 years, I left Boys Home and opened Little Learners Daycare across from the hospital in Fairleigh. Love it. Best decision I've made, and I absolutely love what I do. That experience is what led to the opening of West Virginia Helping Hands. My experience at Boys Home prepared me to deal with a lot of foster kids. A lot of kids in the system were diverted by Mountain Heart to Little Learners because of my experience in working with those types of children. Gratefully. However, that experience led me to have an encounter with a mom and 3 kids. And long story short, she was living down at the river in her car with 3 children. Tried as I may to get services for this young lady, it was very difficult because she did not have a permanent address. So that made me start digging into why. You know, this is an amazing county. We're Greenbrier County. We're the second biggest county in the state. Look at all the resources we have here. How could anybody, especially a mom with 3 kids, not provide for her children? What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her is she didn't have the support that I was blessed to have growing up. And I opened most of my talks by saying, but by the grace of God go I. How blessed am I that I don't have to figure that out? You know, there are so many people that I encounter every day that say, well, my goodness, why don't she just pull herself up by her bootstraps? Why doesn't he just go out and get a job? Why doesn't this happen? Why doesn't that happen? And my response typically is because if you don't have a pair of boots, you can't pull them up. Right? So West Virginia Helping Hands, it's going to be and is a residential education center, meaning we will be providing wraparound services for people in need. The difference between us and everybody else is we'll have a residential component. So we're going to be addressing the homelessness issue. We will not be a homeless shelter. Homeless shelters do not work. There's no accountability, there's no responsibility, there's no opportunity for growth, there's no segue into the community. They do not work. They meet the immediate need of housing and food, and that's it. So they don't meet the solution. So our program is an attempt to meet a solution. I don't have all the answers. I hope to have them. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that if I can take somebody and meet their immediate need of a safe housing, and I can get their belly full and make them safe and their families safe, that the opportunity of them returning to productive citizenship increases significantly. West Virginia Helping Hands will be partnering with existing agencies. We're not reinventing the wheel. We have mental health services right here. We have medical services right here. We have college education right here. We have all the opportunities for people to be successful. And we just need to put it all together. So our organization is focusing on taking the unemployable and helping them identify their obstacles, create a plan to overcome those obstacles, and then seek employment and independent living. So it's a transitional thing. We don't call it transitional housing. I made that mistake once. Being young, not young, but inexperienced in the opportunity, I was a victim of my own verbiage because I was just talking. I was just trying to solve a problem, and I thought everybody would be happy to hear me. But unfortunately, people would identify certain target words and Google it, and the next thing you know, I'm defending myself for saying transitional housing when I just meant they would transition into their own housing. So I'm learning. I'm not a politician. I'm not a genius. I'm just a little daycare owner that wants kids to have safe beds. I think that as our society grows, that if we need to take care of each other, if we want our crime to get better, then we lessen the opportunities for crime. And some crimes are completed out of meanness. We got mean people. Some are completed because out of necessity. And if we want that to stop, then we meet the necessity. The very first conversation we had when we established West Virginia Helping Hands was the importance of not creating an area of victimization. We do not want to create a problem for our program or for the community around us. So it's very important that we'll have our own security. We'll have video surveillance. We will have the things in place. We will have a program of commitment. We will have vetting of our program participants. So it's not like anybody will just be able to walk in off of the street and set up residence in Helping Hands. However, if they can come to us, then we will, if we are not the appropriate placement to them, we're going to work really hard with the other places in West Virginia to find them appropriate placement, because everybody needs a bed. Everybody needs dignity. Everybody needs an opportunity to be a decent human being. And I don't think that I have the power to tell them that you're not worthy of this. You don't get a second chance. You don't get your dignity back. Try again next week. That's not, I don't think any of us here have that opportunity, nor do we have that right. We are growing. We have so much support and are so blessed. We are not going to be taking active addiction. We're not taking that on. There's plenty of places in the state that do that. However, when these people come out of addiction, when they beat that, what are their options? You go through addiction counseling, you beat that. Man, and that not everybody can do that, but when you have done that, no one comes up to you and says, congratulations, here you go. You beat addiction. Here's your job. Here's your place to live. All your problems are solved. No one does that. So what happens? Have the same problems we had before addiction. So do we go back to what's familiar to us? So post-addiction, post-counseling, come to us. We'll give you a safe place to live. We'll help you reestablish yourself in the community. We'll help you overcome that and give you a fresh start. I know there are a lot of questions, and I'd be happy to answer any of them, but I know everybody's hot. I appreciate the opportunity. I am just so passionate about what we're doing, and please, if you have any questions at all, ask for the facts. Ask for the facts about the program rather than the assumptions. Get to know what we're about and all of the opportunities that's coming to our community because of West Virginia Helping Hands. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just kind of in closing of that topic, I kind of touched on this in the last executive committee meeting. The goal that I want to see for the Greenbrier County Republican Party is once again beyond just, us sitting here making decisions of, how many Donald Trump 2024 bills we need to buy. The whole point of the Republican Party is to be a vessel in the community of conservatism and Christianity. That's what the Republican Party is supposed to do. And if that means going beyond just what we're used to and helping organizations such as Helping Hands and helping the Greenbrier Pregnancy Center, and we have to take stands on some very important issues. For example, who here has had the chance to go to the movie theater and watch The Sound of Freedom? It is stunning. It is stunning. It will make your spine absolutely chill of what is going on and continues to happen in our country related to child sex trafficking. These are conversations that have to happen. And if they're going to happen, they're going to happen because of the Republican Party. They're certainly not going to happen because of the Democrat Party, who are actively trying to push that a movie, to the side because they don't want people to know about it. They don't want to know that problem is festering in our country. They want that swept under the rug.
Their industry.
The Democrat Party doesn't want people to know that these young ladies need that extra step in their lives, somebody to reach out to them and not just say, as Kayla Kessinger said the last time, it's not just going to them and saying, hey, I'll pray for you. That's great. We have to pray for them. But we also have to be the hands and feet of Christ. It's got to be more than that. We have to put our energy into it. And that's what the Republican Party is supposed to do.
That's right, Ben.
So, and I appreciate you all helping us in that effort. All right, I know it's hot. We're going to get these last little agenda items really quick. I dabble in that from time to time. We are going to have a fair booth this year. The executive committee will have a fair booth this year. We are in the process of getting volunteers for that. Trey Ewing, whether you know it or not, you're in charge of that. Thank you. And I will help you. We'll be a co-team.
I don't believe
In all seriousness, we will be sending out via email and calling the individual associate members saying we need your help to work shifts at the State Fair of West Virginia, 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And we need all of you to make this happen. The difference is we will be able to sell our memberships and we will be able to sell our merchandise. And so we are very excited about that opportunity. We will be reaching out to you all about that. In the meantime, what has always been a success for us in getting people interested in